And so the way I state it is affordability is a matter of priority. And that sentence right there just gets people, kind of stops people. And I said, look, how long have you guys been together, married together? 35 years. Do you feel responsible for the well-being of your family or your spouse in your absence? Is that something that's important? Of course. Okay. And just how important is that for you? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. And while you have the ability, I tell them in the presentation, look, there are two facts in life. We're all going to die. We don't know when.
Right.
So we have no control over that, but we have 100% control on how we're going to take care of our loved ones when we're no longer here.
Boom.
If you're looking for fluff, keep scrolling. If you want the truth about building freedom in this game, we're on air.
All right, well, you guys are in for a treat today because we got the widely requested my brother Alex Valencia in the house.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Doing very well. Very well. Blessed to be here.
Blessed to be with you, man. It's this is something that we've obviously been wanting to do for a while. Alex, it's within the past. I want to say, within the past year, I would say, you and I have developed a brotherhood, kind of like, the camaraderie when people go to war, right?
Yeah.
It's a different feeling. I recall when I first came, this was 3 years ago when we were just, looking at you guys from the outside versus today, because we've gone through we've gone through a lot within the past couple of months, just the industry, trying to attack us and inject out in terms of actually building this IMO. So you and I have gotten very close. And so there's a lot that we can unpack in the podcast today and to kind of, shed some light more about your story because I've gotten to know you. But there's a lot of people out there that do not know the man behind the scenes, Alex Valencia. So let's do that today.
Sure. Excellent.
Let's do that.
Love it.
Well, to talk to us about your background, man. First of all, your career before getting into insurance.
So my first thing was when I went to school, which really wasn't something that I was like that overexcited about, but I did it because of my parents. It kind of pleased them.
Yeah.
Also, they didn't have a real good idea, like most people when they graduate from high school, what they're going to do with their lives. So I ended up graduating from the University of Florida. The idea was to go into law school, things of that nature. I double majored, and that was the first kind of sign of where I was going to go in the future, because I realized school wasn't it. And for me, the thought of going to 3 more years of school did not excite me at all. And by the time I was a senior, I realized that law is not something that I wanted to get into. I still have both diplomas, or one, I don't even know, in that brown tube that comes in. That shows you how much I had no interest in school. But I did it for my parents. And I decided to move in a different direction.
You actually graduated?
I graduated, double majored, majored and minored, political science and criminal justice.
Okay.
I took some pre-law classes. That's when I was like, I don't want to do this. This is not for me. And it was a hard step because it was something that my parents put a lot of emphasis on, even though I put myself through school, loans, jobs, things of that nature, borrowed very little, and was proud of my accomplishment, but it really didn't mean anything to me because of my background. We weren't raised with much. I wanted to make money. I needed to go out there and bring some money home, help my parents out, myself, etc. So at that time, the movie Wall Street came out.
Okay.
And this is in the 90s. And that caught my interest. And so a friend of mine gave me a call. He was a Series 3 licensed commodity broker.
Okay.
He says, "What you know anything about commodities?" I have no idea what that is. He said, like stocks, but you're trading like natural resources.
Okay.
And I took the test, got involved with that, and that's when I entered the world of sales. And that basically kicked everything off. I think I was about 22, maybe 23 years of age.
I was going to ask you, what age were you when you got
Yeah, right around there. I graduated school in 93, so it was right after that.
Okay.
And that basically kicked it off. I later went on and got my Series 7, worked in New York for a little while as an investment banker during the 90s, which was the Wild Wild West. Everyone knows about the Wolf of Wall Street and all these.
We hear about it. We see it in the movies, right?
Yeah. It's a crazy time. But I really felt most comfortable in the commodity markets, where it's is where I stayed and had a very good career in that business.
Were you affiliated with Oakmont, with the
No,
with the Wolf of Wall Street?
no.
Top MC?
So when I got involved, none of us knew all that stuff, what was going on. We heard little stories here and there.
Jordan Belfort and that whole thing.
Yeah, Strand Oakmont and
Yeah.
whatever it may be. And
Yeah.
there was a lot of firms at that time that
Right.
were caught doing, illegal things or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what turned me off a little bit because, what a lot of people did is go to these smaller firms and bring IPOs, get involved with IPOs, public offerings, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it didn't, the company that we were with didn't do too well. They had a couple of issues. So I said, you know what, I'm going back to what I know,
Yeah.
which is the commodity markets, and then came back and did extremely well and did that for the next 20 plus years.
So, given your background, a lot of people would be intimidated for approaching somebody like you because you're sharp. I mean, the background with the law does not surprise me at all because one of the things that I really appreciate about you and I learned a lot about you is your eloquence and the way that you speak. And when I heard your presentation for the very first time, I was like, I told myself, there's nobody that speaks as good as you do. When I heard your presentation, that got me fired up, and we're actually going to be unpacking that today. So make sure that you guys stay tuned because the way that Alex does it, I've been in this industry for 7 years now. I got licensed 2017. I believe it's 7 years if I'm doing the math right. Yeah, actually going on my 8th year, and I've never seen anybody that does that presentation the same way that you do.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, man. And so a lot of people would be intimidated for approaching someone like you because you were an investment banker before. You're a New Yorker. You've been in those white collar positions up there. How does somebody like you get into insurance?
Well, good question. Let me go back a little bit. So I was always very attracted and like when someone would speak well, I would listen, and I would actually back then, I'm going to date myself, I would record them, cassette player.
No kidding.
Or cassette recorder.
Yeah.
And when I finally was able to land what I considered like a dream position with a very well-known owner in the commodity markets, obviously for respect for him, I won't mention his name, but he was the most eloquent speaking person that I've ever met. And that's where I was like, I'm going to learn how to speak like him. I'm going to be with him. I'm going to join, hopefully get hired by his company and make my name for myself. And he brought me under his wing and taught me so much. And every time he would say something, I would write it down. And so if you actually met him today, you would kind of see a little bit of the resemblance of him and I, because
and the way you speak.
Yeah, the way we speak, because I mimicked him a little bit. I was around him for 20 plus years.
Interesting.
And I owe a lot to this gentleman. He was phenomenal. So what happened was the commodity markets got a little bit tough. It's a highly regulated industry.
Yeah.
High risk.
Right.
And I got married. I had a child, and I said, enough of this. I got to get into something a little bit more calm, less risk, and things of that nature. You get a little bit older, you start feeling a certain way. And I said, you know what? I prayed to God. I'm a big spiritual person.
Yeah.
I said, give me a sign. Mm-hmm. And we got pregnant. My wife ended up getting postpartum, and I said, this is it. This is my answer to move into something else. I had done pretty well with my career. And I said, let me take some time off, stay with my wife, help her out a little bit through this situation, and then basically look for something else. I'd made enough money where I could kind of take a little bit of time off.
Sure.
And I learned something about myself. That lasted about 3 to 4 weeks. I could not sit still. So I turned around and I said, baby, I got to go work. I got to go find something to do. And we ended up getting a nanny to help my wife out. She came out of her situation.
Good.
Some of the people that had worked for me left and went into the insurance business. I thought insurance was something that old people did. You know what I mean? For some reason, I don't know why I had that impression, like some old man would come over to your house with a bunch of papers to sign,
I actually expand, if you could elaborate more on that, because people, when we look at, if somebody on the outside would take a look at Alex Valencia, become, a person who's coming from Wall Street, as an investment banker, what is the impression from your perspective, do you guys look down upon insurance like, oh, I'm too good for that? Like, does that impression exist?
Not with me. I just didn't know enough about it. You know, the person who sold me my insurance policy was a guy that did the insurance for our company. Kind of like a goofy guy, nice guy, but you know, nothing exciting. You know, Wall Street's exciting. It's fast movers. You know,
Right.
it's high money, high rollers, etc.
There's glamour. There's
a lot of
status.
glamour.
Right?
Yeah, there's a really cool aura about
Exactly.
it. You know?
Exactly. Right.
And so you wouldn't think about that in getting into the insurance business, but it's the exact opposite. The majority of the people in the insurance industry are young, talented, motivated, hungry people that want to do well. The beautiful thing about it is there's no risk. You don't have people's money at risk like you do in Wall Street. And you're actually providing a service that people need. So the more you help people, the more you make. It's like the greatest combination in the world, you know?
Right. 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 So when you got into insurance, what is it? Did you come into it and had the feeling of, you know what, with my skill set, I see a huge opportunity here? Like, did you come into say, oh, wow, you know what? I didn't know how much money was. Like, what is it that turned you on? I know obviously making money, helping people, but at that point in time, if you could take us back when you came across this opportunity, what is it that made sense to you about it and said, you know what, let me pull the trigger and get into it?
So it's, I was 47, I believe, maybe 48 years of age. I have a home, a mortgage. I have a family, responsibilities. Not an easy thing to do for a person in that position. And unfortunately, a lot of us get stuck in what we're doing. We want to make a change, but we can't financially see how to do it.
Yeah.
And I took that plunge. And all I was looking for was something that I could cover my bills, and then I would figure out the next move the next time. You know, there's an old saying that if you're leaving Chicago to New York, you can't wait for all the lights to turn green. You need the first one to turn green. You worry about the next one, when you get there. And so that's what I did. Let me make sure I have enough income that could take care of my family, cover my means, my lifestyle, and then I've always looked up. I always looked to get into management and move up the ranks and things of that nature. It's just in me to do that. So I said, look, if I, as a producer, what can I make? And then I'll basically grow from there. Like growing in the company was just something that was automatic for me. So the first thing I found out is what kind of income do people make in the insurance business? And I didn't realize that there is a lot of money to make in the insurance business.
For the people that don't know, what is a lot of money?
If you're not making six figures, you're doing something wrong. You really are. You're not putting the time in. You're there's something that you're not doing.
Right.
It's from where I come from and what I do. If you don't make six figures, you're doing something really. I don't know how else to put it. Something is wrong there because it's there for you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's there.
So when you first got in, I know that you started off in the insurance industry in a captive agency.
Correct.
Right. So this wasn't the model that we have today.
No.
Right. So when you've obviously gotten licensed over there, but what is it that motivated you, or what is it that really drove you to look elsewhere and say, hey, you know what, this is not where I want to spend my career in this model. I'd rather go to what is it that made you transition out of that captive company?
Good question. So as I mentioned earlier, with the company, the gentleman that I worked with, I was there for over 20 years. I'm the guy that goes and sticks it out. I don't like to jump around.
Yeah.
And so I went to this company, well-known company, captive, et cetera.
Right.
Enjoyed the people around me, moved up the ranks immediately. Within 6 months, I had gone up to different levels. But unfortunately what happened was, and I'm going to keep it to a minimum because I have a lot of respect for the people that are still there.
Sure.
A lot of accolades, a lot of certificates, very not the money I was looking for. And one of the things that kind of took, you don't know everything till you get in and you start figuring things out.
Yeah.
I figured that in that particular company, you couldn't really make the big money unless you had a team under you.
Yeah.
As an individual producer, you were kind of limited, and the people that you catered to were mostly people that could have some financial issues, which means there was a lot of chargebacks and things of that nature. And so you don't know this when you get into the business. You figure it out. Right. And so first couple of years, I learned the business. And once I learned the business and excelled at it, then I was of the mindset, well, I got to go where I'm going to do the right thing for the people and do the right thing for myself and my family.
Right.
So after about 3 years, I was one of the main recruiters. I did the webinars, I did all that stuff,
Yeah.
did very well with it. But there was a high retention rate, which is not necessarily just with that company. It's in insurance in general. And we could touch on that a little bit as to why. And then I said to myself, you know what?
You mean a low retention rate.
Low retention rate, excuse me.
Right, yeah.
High turnover rate, I mean.
High turnover rate. Yeah.
And so I said, it's time for me to look outside
Yeah.
after 3 years.
Yeah.
I gave it, no one who gives it 3 years. That's
Right.
a long time. And I said, I got to make a move. I
Yeah.
have to look for something
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
And you get recruited a lot once you make a name for yourself. People are coming after
Sure,
you.
of
They want
course.
to give you offers, et cetera.
Of course. It's funny you say that. Who does that? Because I did that. We have that in background. We're exactly the same in that regard. We were not affiliated with the same company, but it seems like a lot of people most people come to the insurance industry with a captive company. That's their initial introduction. And just like you, I'm a loyal person who's, I stayed with my former company for 3-4 years actually. Right, because my identity was attached to that, and I saw myself climbing to the highest of ranks, and I didn't look elsewhere because that's when you first get involved in the industry, whatever company that you get involved in, that's your echo chamber in a sense. You don't know what else is out there, right? Because you only know what you get told. Before that, you had no idea about what insurance was. Right. And so when I first got involved, I had the exact same thing. It was just recognition, but not enough income. And I started to ask myself, hey, I got into this because I want to make the type of income that my mentor, who I have a lot of respect for, just like you had a mentor who I mimicked and I learned everything from. But I was there because at the end of the day, I wanted to get his results.
Right.
4 years in, I'm looking at myself. I'm like, wait, hold on a second, man.
It's not happening.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
And it's the same business plan year after year after year after year. And at some point, it's like, wait, hold on a second. Time is not slowing down. And that's when the rubber hits, meets the road, when your back is against the wall and you're like, okay, I'm listening now. What else is out there?
Yeah.
And then right?
That's exactly what
That's
happened. What I noticed was with the system that was in place, the people at the bottom kept being replaced, but everyone up top stayed the same.
Exactly.
And there was like 1 or 2 main people up top making the money, and there's a road of burnt down agents that did all kinds of sacrifices, et cetera, but they weren't getting ahead. The people up top were maintaining, and gaining assets and things like that.
So I say that again slowly, because this is very important, right? If I look back at those same companies that I came from, it's the same people at the top. The people at the bottom are very different.
Yeah.
People at the bottom are very different, but the people at the top are the exact same people.
So here's the cycle. What happens? You come in and you're pumped up, you're juiced up, your ether's going.
Right.
I literally work 7 days a week because I cannot have peace sitting at home knowing that I have responsibilities. So my peace came in work.
Right.
To me, work and play is one and the same.
Yeah.
It's a hobby. So
Right.
So, about a year later, it's what ends up happening. The person comes in, they're all juiced up, they're ready to go, they're selling, that new factor that come in and you're enthusiastic and innocent to the whole thing. And then it starts to wear down a little bit about a year later because you start looking around and say, okay, the company hasn't really changed, just
Right.
the people have changed.
Right.
2 years later, it's the same number of teams, the same number of people in the teams.
Right.
But nothing has grown, but the person up top is still making a lot of money,
Yeah.
and everyone on the bottom has changed. So now there's a long path of burnt out agents that came in hopeful and were sold a story that they're going to make all this money,
Right.
and all they did was basically finance the people up top, and then they just keep replacing and replacing and replacing. Person up top makes all the money, everyone down below was burnt out from the business.
So if someone was listening to this and that just clicked, that click just happened there, you're like, hey, you know what? Now I see it. I didn't look at it that way, but now that you mentioned what you just said, Alex, I find myself in that same position. I came in, I was very excited. It's been 14 months. It's been 18 months. I don't know if I'm as excited as I did when I got into it. I burned my warm market. I bought the leads. The leads are not working. You know what? Frankly, Alex, I'm broker than what I was when I got into it. By the way, there's a lot of let's talk about. There's a lot of people in that position, right? It's unspoken, but you come in and you have these big dreams of, I'm going to build a business that's I'm going to attain financial freedom, create generational wealth, make a 7-figure income, and then boom, your results go down as time passes. If someone just listened to that and said, hey, you know what? You're right. I'm in that position right now. What should I do?
So what happened to me is once I did pretty well within the company. I'm one of the few that stayed.
Right.
But I also got burnt out in trying to build a team that was not sustainable.
Right.
You know? Mm-hmm. So I started listening to offers. And I said, it's time for me to kind of broaden my horizons, see what's out there, et cetera.
Yeah.
There was one particular company that was growing at a fast rate. One of the agents that left us called me up and said, I need you to listen to this lady. She produces $100,000 a month. That's what most people did in a year.
That's the hook. That's the hook right there.
And I was like,
that's it.
Okay.
That's it.
$100,000 a month. I said, really? I said, is this for real? You know, she says, yeah. How do they do that? You know? And anyways, through about 3 or 4 different phone calls, I finally said, okay, let's do it. Because I was still kind of not sure.
It sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, and luckily, you know, we're in Miami. She's from down here in Miami, and so we set up a Zoom call, and it was all real. And I said, wait a minute. So this is how we describe it, is with your own pen. So you wrote $100,000 with your own pen, because all these other companies are doing 8, 10, 15,000, you know, et cetera.
Right.
After chargebacks and this and that and everything else, you're not making money.
Right.
And so I said, how is that possible? What about the chargebacks? What about this? What about what's the, you know?
Yeah.
She broke it all down in black and white, showed me receipts.
Right.
You know, and I was like, okay, so this is why I got into the business in the first place.
Right.
To give you a little bit of background, ever since I got into the financial markets and became a broker, we call the broker in the business.
Yeah.
I've been in management since I was 26. So I've been worrying about other people's problems, not but just my own, right?
Sure.
So I wanted a time to just worry about myself.
Yeah.
And they knew I had a background of recruiting, et cetera. And I said, look, all I want to do is make money for myself, worry about myself.
Right.
And once I do that, then I'm going to be open up to teaching other people how to do it, because there's obviously a lot of money there.
Right.
And you know what a lot of companies do, and this will click for a lot of people, is before you even make it, they're already telling you to recruit other people, and you haven't even made it yet, you know?
Yeah.
And I didn't like that, because I'm not going to bring somebody in that I can't vouch for as far as, is this real or not, you know?
Absolutely.
And so I made the switch, and for the first time in years, what somebody actually said was a reality. And here I am 3.5 years later going, wow, this actually happened, which is why we're here.
Which is why we're here.
Yeah.
And by the way, that person who you're referring to, you're talking about is
Vivian
Vile.
Vivian Vile, yeah,
right?
With AIRE.
Right. Who's now become my mentor. She's your mentor, right? And the
first real person I met in this business.
I remember, Alex, man, I'm getting excited. Like, I'm ready to go sell insurance right now, man, because I remember when I first heard about Vivian, I vividly remember I was taking a flight back from Chicago to Saudi Arabia. And I downloaded every podcast that Vivian had, every single podcast. And I said, wait, hold on a second. You're telling me I can make $100K in a month on my personal pen? By the way, the reason why that was so attractive, because the only people that made that in my former company had a team of 5,000 people. Right. Yeah. Now, between where I was there, right, between having a team of 5 to 5,000, there was a big gap to bridge, right? There was a huge gap. But you're telling me that I could do that without relying on anybody else and make a 6-figure income a month? By the way, when you're in the dirt, you got a huge point to prove, right? You got a huge point to prove when people kind of look down, oh, you're selling insurance now, right? Oh, what happened? You had big dreams. You feel at some point that you're supposed to be ahead in life. And now you come across an opportunity like, whoa. I could leap everybody else and make a 6-figure income, not in a year, but in a month. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
I downloaded every podcast that Vivian had. And I realized that she was selling mortgage protection, right? And I was skeptical, just like you. Wait, hold on. What about the chargebacks? What about, are you really netting this much? And then you realize that if she writes 100 grand, she makes more than 100 grand.
Right, because of her comp level.
Because of her comp level. So even factoring in the advance, her comp level, the comp levels that we offer are so high that the advance is even higher than the IP itself, right? So the reason I bring that up is because there's a lot of people that will be watching this that don't even know that that's even a possibility. It clicked for you. That's the reason why you made the move. It clicked for me. That's why I fought tooth and nail for me to get to this agency, right? Because that's a whole story in itself. But I want you to really expand upon that, because there's nobody that does it better than you, in my opinion, when it comes to personal production. I came into this and I had a misconception of, if you wanted to make that type of income, you couldn't make that on your personal pen. Now, when I came in, I saw you. I heard you on the phone. I saw your presentation. I'm like, wait, hold on a second. You make how much? And this is all you do. So from a personal pen's perspective, your own production, you're able to make a 6-figure income. If you could touch upon that more for the people in the audience about how you have that type of ability to make that type of income just by purely selling insurance without having to build a team.
Sure. So first of all, it's just mathematics.
Right.
So when you're coming in from a company that's giving you 60, 70% comps, and then you come into and they offer you substantially higher. So right then and there, for the same work that you did before, you're getting paid 50% more. Mm-hmm. Okay. The other thing that a lot of people don't talk about, because they don't have the numbers to back it up, is your persistency or your retention rate. So a lot of people, a lot of companies out there, for those of you who are talking to other companies, this is where you're going to see the difference in sales, what I consider a sales job and a career, which are two different things. One and the same, but different. And what I mean by that is a lot of companies out there are just pushing how much money you can make over and over and over again. They're showing you production numbers. What they're not telling you is how much of that money you're actually keeping. And so one of the biggest, besides an increase in comp rate, is your persistency. How much of that business stays in the books?
Absolutely.
So a lot of the companies that I myself have listened to, because I'm always curious what's out there, in the past, they'll show you numbers as far as production, but they're not going to show you what those numbers look like the next month when half that business falls off. So they're look, we get bonuses on this, and we did this, and this guy came in first month and he did 50,000, blah, blah, blah. But they don't tell you that the next month that 50 turned into 15 because 35 of it fell off.
Right.
They forget somehow to tell you about that. And that's money that you owe back, So the beautiful thing about the company we came with, we'll call it AIRE now, because that's who we are. But it was, ARIA before, is that it had one of the highest persistency rates. And that comes from the mentoring and the coaching that we got from Vivian herself. Vivian would be out there on Zoom presenting live and did 100 grand a month. How many people actually do that? They do it behind closed doors, so we don't know what they're saying. Vivian would do it live. She had over a 90% persistency rate, which means that of 100 policies she puts in, she places, 90 of them are still standing there 12 months later.
Right.
Which means that the chargebacks are minimal. You don't even see them that much.
Well, not only that, but talk about what you get on the back end. Because
so the other part is, if you do it the right way, which is a good point, now on the 10th and 11th and 12th month, no one in the other companies are expecting anything because half this business is falling off.
Right.
I have, quite a bit of money coming in from the back end money, because they owe you get paid 75%, which is 9 months in advance. They owe you the 10th, 11th, and 12th month. Right. You're getting that money on the 10th, 11th, and 12th month. Right.
And so by the way, Alex is being humble because I know what that back end looks like for him. It's what most people wouldn't even make just by being actively selling insurance.
It's over $10,000 a month.
Right.
And back end money if you do it the right way. So now you're an entrepreneur, you're a businessman, you're not a salesperson just trying to make a sale.
Yeah.
So let's go back to that original point. What was the difference? The difference is that we don't step into a conversation or a presentation with the mindset of selling. We go into a presentation with the mindset of servicing the client. So there's a difference between servicing and selling. Selling is that you're doing something for your own benefit, financial interest. Servicing is that you're basically seeing, does this person have a need? Do they need this policy? Is there a need involved? And we go through a needs analysis. We go through a medical background in the presentation to see what they qualify for. We go through a financial financial needs analysis, figure out if they actually need it, what kind of coverage do they have, is it enough, it's not enough. You'll find that 9 out of 10 people either don't have enough coverage or the wrong kind of coverage. So even if they have coverage, which is a great thing, a lot of people get a little disappointed with, oh, we already have coverage. I get excited because they already believe in insurance, and most of the time they don't have the right coverage,
Yeah. They're consumers of the product.
Yeah, they're already, versus a person who's never done it before, we don't know if they believe in insurance or not. It's something new to them, True. And so once you go through both the health questions and you see what they qualify for from a medical standpoint, then you go through the needs analysis, you see what they actually need, their income, what coverages they currently have, is it through work or not work, is it private, et cetera, portable. Then you find the need. You show the client the need, and once you do that, they're selling you. You're not selling them as to why they need that. It's mathematics.
I want to expand on that because this is one of the things that make you very unique, Alex, is your approach. And this is in general true for all of our, true for our IMO, because that's what Vivian has always taught us, right? But if you could expand on that, there's a lot of people out there who are afraid of getting into sales, or maybe they have a bad taste or a bad, idea about salesmanship, just because they think of those are the people that will push up on people, that will force people into something. So they have a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth. Now they know that there's a lot of money into it. How do you make it at a high level in sales without actually, quote unquote, selling and pushing up on people? What is that approach? If you could expand more on, what we do over here is we focus on mortgage protection, right? So everybody that comes in, everybody that we call or that shows up on our appointment, obviously, because we at this position you have people who are calling for you, you have your dialers and whatnot. So you're coming in, you're in a privileged position today because of your skill set that you just come in and you open up your calendar to a full day booked of people that are meeting with you. They're jumping on a Zoom call with you to learn more about mortgage protection. These guys have just bought a house and they received a letter in their mail and they called in, they took action, right? Called in, filled out their information over the phone, wanting to learn more about this. So they show up. Now, when they show up, how do you set the frame? How do you set the stage in that appointment to show that you're not just there to be transactional?
All right, so a couple of things. And one thing I wanted to also touch on is that it's either Zoom or phone.
Correct. Yeah.
It's some people have some comfort with Zoom, some people have comfort with phone appointments. Yeah. In today's world, it's no longer going to people's homes. But going back to your question, so what I've learned in 30 years, 3 decades of being in sales type positions is, you want to overcome the objection before it comes out.
Okay.
So when someone calls you immediately, what's the first thing that pops in your head? Who is this?
Who's this guy?
Right. So my second sentence after I introduce myself is, before we get started, I text you my license and my national producer number that's on my badge. I just want to make sure that you did receive it. Yes, this is my second sentence after, hello, my name is so-and-so, calling you about the mortgage. They know we're meeting. Second sentence, boom. Okay, great. Please save that for your record since we do handle sensitive client information, social security numbers, bank account numbers, etc. The state does require us to provide our licenses for your protection. This way you know that you're speaking to a licensed field underwriter, not a random person off the phone. And just to add to that, and very important, just for me to be on this phone call with you, I had to go through an extensive FBI background check with fingerprinting as a requirement to get the license. So I've been fully vetted by everybody, the FBI, state, local government, as well as each individual insurance carrier that I'm partnered with. And this is all for your protection, John, Joe, whoever. I hope you could appreciate that. You pause and you always hear, no, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So you've gotten that part out of the way. Why is that important? Twofold. Number one, you're planting a seed, because you mentioned to them that you're going to need social security numbers, bank account numbers, etc. People sometimes don't believe me, but out of 3.5 years, thousands upon thousands, over 1.5 million in sales, I've gotten maybe 2 or 3 times the objection of, I don't know you, I can't give you my social. And it was a BS answer. They just didn't want to do it. Someone wants it, they're going to check you out and they're going to move forward with it, you know? My point with it, I'm talking about a handful, 2, maybe 3 times in 3.5 years that I've ever gotten Social Security, bank, objection.
Right.
Because I hit them with that right in the front so it goes off.
Right.
Second, now they know who I am. So I beat them before I don't know who you are comes out.
Sure.
Because once the toothpaste comes out of the
Right.
tube, you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
put it back in, right?
Right.
So you want to beat them to it. So now we got that out of the way, right? So what I do in the beginning, I'm setting the stage, creating a positive buying atmosphere.
Right.
So I'm getting all the BS out of the way. So the number one is, who are you? Took care of that. Number 2, what are you trying to sell me? Is the second thing that comes out.
Right.
So after I introduce myself and give all that,
Right.
the second thing I say, so before we get started, let me just say something. I am not a salesperson. I'm not here to sell you anything. I can't. Okay. Mortgage protection is not something you can just buy off the shelf, one size fits all kind of thing. It's something they have to apply for and get approved. And that's what this call is for, is to figure out all those details that are specific to you. Once I have that information, then I'll be able to show you something that will realistically, you can get approved for and protect your home. So now I took care of the second thing. I'm not there to sell. When you do that, the guard goes down.
Right.
And once the guard is down, now you're having a conversation without a person feeling like this guy's trying to sell me.
Right.
Now, all the details of your presentation are going to settle in as their head a little bit more versus having their guard up and half the information going through.
Right. Guys, about $1.5 million worth of game what just took place right here. This is what this looks like. This is
With
how
my own pen.
with his own pen. This is how professional Alex is. I mean, I truly believe you're so underrated. People need to listen to you speak on the phone, man. I get excited every time I hear that. It just rolls off of your tongue because you said it so many times.
I've said it a billion times.
A billion times, right? And you're addressing the conversation inside their head.
Inside their head before it comes out.
Because
once it comes out, now it's ugly.
Right.
So you want to get it before it comes out.
And the moment that their guard is down, then it's like, okay.
And you could feel kind of like
The energy, right?
kind of like
Yeah. Thank God.
like they're like and they kind of rest a little bit. Say, oh, okay. So I'm not buying anything today. Okay, let's go. Right? That kind of thing.
Right.
And again, I'm not selling them. My job is to find out if they need it.
And by the way, to be frank with you, that was a mind shift for me that I've learned from you, is that we're really servicing the client.
Service.
It's not transactional. I come from a background where it was, one call closes, high volume, transaction, right? Just get the sale, move on to the next, get the sale, move on to the next. Yes, we know that 3 out of 10 are going to fall off. Maybe 5 out of 10 will fall off. That's okay. Just buy more leads and replace that business. It's fine. It'll be okay. You do it different. Like, oh, hold on. No. We don't just sell. We actually take the time, invest the time to find out if there is a need, and then we present a solution.
Correct.
And to me, it was like, pff,
And that's what we're doing. We're solving problems.
right,
That problems that everyone's going to have because no one makes it out of here alive.
right,
So it's a problem that everyone's going to have. And while you have the ability, I tell them in the presentation, look, there are 2 facts in life. We're all going to die. We don't know when.
right,
So we have no control over that, but we have 100% control on how we're going to take care of our loved ones when we're no longer here.
boom,
And that's what we're doing right now.
boom,
Because at some point, you're not going to be here.
right,
And that's one of the things that I tell people. Are you 100% satisfied in the financial state that you're leaving your family behind if you didn't wake up tomorrow? 9 out of 10 times, no, I'm not.
So once you set the stage right, that once your posture in the call is obviously you're the professional, you have the authority here, right? And so now once you progress in that presentation, you go over what they have in terms of their mortgage, right? And then you go over their basically their finances. You owe this much on the house. Here's how much you make, right? And you obviously do that with the both husband and wife. That's very important, right?
Right.
And then towards the end, how do you make a case? Just like an attorney would. How do you make that case?
So it's you got to set the stage right. One of the things I tell them is, look, we're going to find out if you do need it, and if you don't need it, I'll be the first to let you go. We're good to go.
Okay.
We'll cut the meeting short. You're gone.
Yeah.
They appreciate that.
Right.
Because now they realize, okay, he is on a fact-finding mission. He's not in a selling, generated commission mission.
He's on my side.
Right. He's trying to figure out if I even need this first.
Right.
So let's figure out what you have financially. And that's where I take all the numbers down. And it's just math.
Yeah.
You know, you have his income, her income together. They have
Sure.
combined income. You know, most of the time, it's obviously these people have qualified for loans, so they're financially, they're okay.
Right.
They have a couple of bucks left over. You look at it. You say, look, it shows your bills are so and so, your income combined is so and so. You have about $2 or $3 grand left over at the end of the month. Does that sound more or less correct? Yes.
Right.
Okay, great.
And
So you
they
got all
see
those,
it.
and they see it.
Right.
They see it. Now, what I do is like, okay, so it's John and Mary. Now John's gone. John's income is gone.
Right.
So now, Mary, this is what your income looks like.
Right.
They're a little bit older. Okay, when John leaves, his Social Security may transfer. That means yours drops if it's greater, and you put him in that position. So now you got $8,000 worth of bills, and you have $4,000 of income coming in. It's just math. Mary, how long do you think that you'll be able to sustain that household? Do you realize that the last check you're going to receive is the one before you pass? How long do you think you could keep this going? Not very long. Okay. What will you do? What would you do? Right now, John's not with you.
Asking those questions.
Got to put him in the middle of the situation.
Putting them in that position.
It gets uncomfortable, and I even apologize ahead of time. I said, "Look, I'm going to put you in a position that's going to make you uncomfortable.
Sure.
But it's important for you. This is real because
Right.
at one point, this is going to happen,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
And so, I said, well, I don't know. Well, would you have to get a second job? Well, I guess I will. Who take care of the kids? Well, I don't know. Okay. Do you see the value of having a policy in place? Yeah. Do you think that having that policy in place that will take over John's income, do you think that's a necessity or do you think that's a luxury? Oh, no, it's a necessity. Okay, let's see what we could qualify you for.
Boom. So they say that. They say that.
They're telling me that.
So now they can backtrack.
No, because I'm not telling them. They're telling me. So I said, okay. And meanwhile, I already have my notes down. I kind of know where to go with them depending on their age, their health, what kind of, and that's why we have so many carriers. That's the part, going back, the captive audience thing. You have a handful of products you could offer.
There's not much in that toolbox.
And there were well over 50% of the people that did not qualify at the other place. I couldn't got them policies here.
How much?
Well over 50%. You take 100% of the people that didn't qualify.
So half of your income.
At least 50% of those people that didn't qualify at the captive audience because they have limited products.
Yeah.
That's why we have 15, 20, 30 different carriers that we go
tailor
with
to
that different
different needs,
products.
right,
That customize or you know, have certain, some of them specialize in different term, you know, guaranteed income, guaranteed insurability, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So going back, we sit down and evaluate what type of coverage
Would make sense for them.
makes sense for them. Yeah, and then you have your, you know, we show people how to use income that is not going to interfere with their bills, and that's also something else. A lot of people, this is important. They take the leftover money.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Pay attention to this part over here. How do you get them to?
This is the part that I just didn't get.
So this is salesmanship. What you're about to hear,
This is something I
true
created.
salesmanship.
Yeah,
Go
this is-
ahead.
I kind of
I can't
picked
wait
up
for
a few
this.
notes here and there, but
Right.
this is what I created, and it works out really well.
Right.
So in general, when you're presenting options to people, you're looking at the bills, you're looking at the income, and whatever's left over is what they set aside.
That's what I could work with.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, I used to get, you know, I can't afford this, you know, I say afford.
Yeah.
And so the way I state it is affordability is a matter of priority. And that sentence right there just gets people, kind of stops people.
Right.
But before I do that, I do a little bit of a setup into that.
Okay. Tell us.
And I said, look, how long have you guys been together, married together? You know, 35 years. Okay. Let me ask you a question. And this is where I basically start setting everything up.
Okay.
Do you feel responsible for the well-being of your family or your spouse in your absence? Is that something that's, well, of course. Okay. Good answer. And just how important is that for you? You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. Before I even get a chance to finish this, 10. So they're feeling, you know,
Yeah.
that's my wife. I'm going to take care of her. That's my responsibility, which is the right answer, or else why you're with that person, you know. All right, so it's at the very top of your priority. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So then I go back to a different part of the presentation. Now when I come to give the options, what is the number one objection you're going to have with regards to the option? Is affordability.
Can't afford it.
So I set it up to where that's not going to come out because I know the numbers.
Right.
I know they bring in
Right.
7,000 or 8,000. Their bills are 5. I know there's 3,000 left over. They can't argue that.
Right.
It's there. It's black
Right.
and white, right? So then I said, look, affordability, how much do we set aside to protect the most important asset that you have, which is your family? Okay. And I said, the answer is affordability is a matter of priority. Okay, what is important to you is at the top of your priority list. What's not important to you is at the bottom of the priority. Those are the things that we can't afford.
Mm-hmm.
So now, can't afford, lower part of the priority. You're not going to put your family there now.
Yeah.
Your family's at the top. And so, and I say something to the degree of, so obviously taking care of your family is more important than any of the bills that we listed earlier. Now, keep in mind, in those bills, you have a phone bill for $180. You have cable for $100+. You have all these things that you feel are important, but not really.
Right.
And so, and then I said, so how much do we set aside? We'll put it to you this way. If you had 1 week to live, screw that. You had 1 day to live, and you had a stack of bills on your desk, and you could only pay one bill, which one would it be? And then there's a pause. I said, would it be your mortgage? Would it be your phone bill? Would it be your grocery? And I give him, help him out a little bit. I said, let me help you out. Most people say the mortgage. He goes, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Okay.
Right.
I said, but let me kind of give you a different view. It'd be your insurance policy, because it's the only policy or the only bill that's going to send your family back a check to pay for the mortgage, keep the lights on,
All of that.
Put food on the table, keep the light, and let Johnny go to school, etc. And then that's when they're like, okay.
Right.
So
Right.
that's when you basically start realizing that you don't put your family at the bottom of the totem pole. You're going to put it at the very top.
Right. And you also ask them that. You ask them that, right? I heard you say this. Hey, what's your family worth to you?
That's the other thing. So let me go into that. So the second question, that's right. Thank you for reminding.
Right.
Is I'm going to ask you a question. It's a one-word answer, just
Right.
one-word answer. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? And there's 2 answers. The question is, what is your family worth to you? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? It's either going to be priceless or everything.
Everything. Right.
So now your family's priceless or everything.
Right.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 on the priority list.
Right.
You're not going to put them at the bottom when it comes to taking care of them in your absence.
Exactly.
Those things really add up to putting it in a place mentally.
Flawless setup.
Yeah.
The reason I'm smiling is because I've heard you say this so many different times, and I get excited. Anybody who's watching this right now, if you just go and rewind, just those liners would add, those alone would add a 6-figure income to your production if you're somebody who's active to this, because you set it up in a way where it would be illogical for me to backtrack. It wouldn't make any sense. By the way, especially when my wife is next to me. Right? Especially when she's right there. Or if my husband is next, depending on who the breadwinner is.
Right.
But this is what we do every day, by the way. You make a very logical case. And you're like, all right, well, based on what you said and based on what you have, what do you think is the next best move? And that's when they say, well, you're right. I guess I need a policy. So then I've also learned this from you, is that when you do all of those steps correctly, towards the very end of it, it's not whether or not I need this. It's which one.
Once you get to the options, which that's leading up to the options.
Right.
Right. And so now we know we have X amount of dollars left over. We're going to take a small percentage of that money, what we call discretional income.
Correct.
Which means it's money that's not earmarked for any specific reason. So it's not going to interfere with your bills. So it's going to be affordable.
Correct.
Right? We're going to take a small percentage of that to protect your number one asset, which is your family.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give you 3 different options.
Right.
Right? And then I give all the options.
Right.
At that point, affordability never comes up.
Right. Yeah.
It never comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And I break down the options. And I would tell you that 95% of the time, it's a close.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to think about. It's a close.
Right.
The reason being is I would have eliminated them long before I got there.
Right.
Because they would say things that I knew that this isn't the right person.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So
Once you get to that point,
right,
It's they're picking an option. You're writing a policy.
And that's the approach. That's why it's servicing. It's not trends.
Servicing,
You're not pushing, because you could be a good salesperson, right? And you could be so talented on the phone that you're going to get people to give you to give you their social, their banking, and all of that information just because they feel pressure. But they're going to cancel.
Yeah, and that's what these people do. Yeah,
right. What's the point?
That's why the retention rate some of these companies like 45-50%, which is that's not selling. That's not servicing.
And a lot of people come into this because maybe they come from they sold cars before, they sold solar. I mean, maybe they sold different things that people don't typically return. This is different because the commissions that we make are advanced commissions. It's not a real commission until it sticks on the books.
Right. In my old business, if someone changed their mind, the positions were purchased already. So I don't want to do this.
Right?
Commodities and stocks. I said, okay, let's sell it.
Yeah.
But we already did the transaction, so we're selling it, and whatever value is there is what they get back.
Right.
Here they cancel it.
Correct.
So now you got a mark on you because now your retention level is low, which means that you're going to have a lot of debt. That's where you get vectored.
Right.
You constantly pay you're half your week. You're working to pay debt.
To pay off
the debt.
So talk about that.
That is horrible.
Talk about that, because at most, in my opinion, when we do recruiting calls, if it's one thing that people that are not in insurance that should ask and they never do because they don't know any better,
is what's the retention rate for the company?
Thank you.
Yeah. The highest sales production that is talked about in a lot of these companies that are recruiting and actively recruiting, that question is never asked, and they will never give you the answer.
They will never give you the answer.
You look at these companies that profess to have the highest sales income earners and this and that. They are board junkies in the sense that they have production numbers on the board.
Right.
But those numbers are not reflective of what the people are actually making because they're paying it back.
Correct.
So that's not real income.
It's not real income.
It's not, because you
It
don't
goes
even
back
see
to
it.
recognition.
Yeah.
Right. Just recognition, clap.
And everyone loves it because your name was brought out as a high income earner, but your bank account's empty.
Does
you
not
know what I
reflect
mean?
that. Right.
And that's why these people get burnt out. That's why the lifespan of some of these agents is not very long, which is why, going back to the original thing,
Turnover.
I'm here.
Right.
The reason I'm here is because I was able to produce a very deep 6-figure income with my own pen. For 3 years, I had nobody. It was just me. Hit what they call Hall of Fame 3 years in a row. Did over 1.5 million in sales with my own pen.
Right.
And had somewhere between 85 to 90% retention, which means 6 months later, 9 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10 policies that I wrote stayed in the books. I made more money in 8 months here than I did in the prior 3 years of my old company. The next year I went up 50%, sold almost 700,000 in sales, and by the way, life insurance, not IULs, not this, not a straight death benefit, life insurance, etc. Just me, and not one referral.
Wow.
Which is another part of the business that increase your business even further.
Of course.
And so that's the difference between what we do and why we don't get burnt out here. And why, here's the main thing. When you come in with the mindset that you have to sell somebody, there's a lot of stress that's put onto you.
Correct.
Your job is not to sell them. Your job is to find...
It's so paradoxical, by the way.
Yeah.
It's so, because I struggled with that for the longest time.
No, so did I. I felt I had to sell somebody. No. When you don't... I tell people, you don't make a prospect, you find one. Mm-hmm. If the person's not that's it, you got to go on to the next one. Mm-hmm. So when you do find it, they sell you if you do the presentation right, and it takes all the stress away. Because you're not feeling like I didn't sell them. No, that person is not a buyer.
Right.
They don't need it.
Right.
They have enough.
Right.
You get a little stressed out when they do need it and they don't see it, but you can't help somebody that doesn't want to see it. You move on to the next one.
And so I appreciate you for saying this, because that's where we're revolutionizing the industry, because you have the ability to make a life-changing 6-figure income just on your personal pen. When you combine that with the building aspect, I mean, it's the income that we've seen is just absolutely crazy. Alex, I wanted to ask you, how do you address let me think about it? But I don't want you to give me the answer. I'll leave this as a cliffhanger for those people that really want to know, how do you address the let me think about it? you reach out to Alex, and based on that conversation, you might find out what that is, because it's so good. But we're not going to unpack that here.
Sure.
Alex, I know your time is very valuable. If somebody wanted to work with you, and I know you don't take on a lot of people, but if somebody wanted to work with you and say, "Hey, Alex, I've listened to this. I need guidance. I need direction. I came into this industry because I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to change my life, but I don't have that guidance." If they wanted to work with you, what would be the best way for them?
Best way is through Instagram, which is Alex Valencia 0711. My first name Alex, last name Valencia with a V, 0711, or call me directly at 305-798-8800. That's 305-798-8800.
Brother, what does the future hold for you, man? What excites you the most?
I am super pumped. AIRE is revolutionizing this business. The vision that has been shared with us is huge, because let me tell you about AIRE and the companies that we represent. AIRE was a group of individuals, high income earners that have done very well, high persistency, et cetera, that got together and said, okay, if we were to make a company, what is it that we want to do? This AIRE is a company by agents for agents. So we sat down and we said, let's make a list of all the things that we hate about the old company, that we don't like.
Right.
Let's make another list of all the things that we love about the old companies that we've been with, and people came from different companies.
We had this conversation in this room.
Yep, in this room. And then the third list is, what do we need to add that doesn't exist? How do we make this better? So we eliminate all the stuff we didn't like. We kept the stuff we liked, and then we added things that didn't exist for the agents to make it agent friendly, onboarding, training, et cetera. It took a long time, but we put all these things together, and you have a company that, first of all, the technology that we use to keep up with the clients, with the policy holders, onboarding, training. This is all done by the agents who are in the field, recruiting, training, and covering people, writing policies. So everything is done from an agent's perspective, to help train, to have a high persistency, to help systems and processes involved. Keep in mind something, you don't always rise to your goals, but you fall to the systems and the processes that are in place. If those systems and processes are at a high level, even when you fail, you're making money.
Right.
And so that's what we've been able to do. And the path that this company is going is very different. So I'm super excited and pumped about that.
We're just getting started.
Yeah, it's just we're at a basement level of something that's going to be of epic proportions moving forward.
That's what excites me the most. Yeah. It's an honor to do this business with you, man.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.